I've been married to Jill for 22 years now, and we've been together for 26. When we first met, everything was perfect. We were young, in love, and life was full of possibilities. But over the years things have changed, and not for the better. Jill's always been strong-willed, which I admired at first. She knew what she wanted and wasn't afraid to go after it. But somewhere along the way, that strength turned into something else. Now it feels like every day is a battle. She's constantly criticizing me, pointing out my flaws for the smallest things. It's like nothing I do is ever good enough for her. At first I tried to brush it off. I told myself she was just stressed. Work is tough and she's dealing with a lot. But the excuses started to wear thin. The harsh words and constant nitpicking began to take a toll on me. I found myself dreading coming home, knowing that another argument was just around the corner. I tried to talk to her about it, hoping we could work things out. But every time I brought it up, it turned into another fight. She'd accuse me of being too sensitive or of not being able to handle a strong woman. But it's not about that. I love strong women. I loved her for her strength. But there's a difference between being strong and being unkind. I miss the Jill I fell in love with. The one who laughed with me, who supported me, and who made me feel like I could conquer the world. Now, I just feel like I'm constantly walking on eggshells, waiting for the next explosion. I've thought about leaving more times than I can count. But it's not that simple. We've built a life together. We have a home, memories, shared dreams, and despite everything, I still love her. I remember the good times, and it breaks my heart to think of throwing it all away. But how much more can I take? Every day, I feel myself getting closer to the edge. Closer to the point where I just can't do it anymore. I don't want to give up on us. But I don't know how to fix it either. I wish she could see what she's doing to me, to us. I wish she could remember the love we once had and find a way back to it. But right now that feels like a distant dream. And I'm left wondering how much longer I can hold on. Maybe it's time for a change. Maybe it's time to put myself first for once. Because as much as I love Jill, I can't keep living like this. I deserve to be happy too. I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to talk to her about how I was feeling, hoping against hope that she would understand. As I approached her, I could already feel the tension building. "Jill, can we talk for a minute?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She sighed heavily, barely glancing up from her phone. "What is it now, Connor?" "I'm busy." "I know, but I really need to talk to you about something that's been bothering me," I said, my heart pounding in my chest. "Oh great, here we go again," she said with a scoff. "What did I do this time?" "It's not about what you did," I began, choosing my words carefully. "It's about how you speak to me. Lately it feels like you are constantly criticizing me, and it's really wearing me down." "Are you serious?" she snapped, her eyes narrowing. "You're being overly sensitive again. You need to toughen up. Life isn't all sunshine and rainbows. It's not about being sensitive," I tried to explain. "It's about feeling respected and valued. I feel like nothing I do is ever good enough for you." She rolled her eyes. "Oh please, you're just looking for something to complain about. Maybe if you actually did something right for a change, I wouldn't have to criticize you all the time." Her words hit me hard, like a punch to the gut. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Jill, I'm serious. This constant criticism is making me miserable. I miss the way we used to be when we could talk to each other without all this negativity." She laughed bitterly. "Well, maybe if you weren't so unproductive we wouldn't have this problem. Maybe the issue isn't me. Maybe it's you." I felt a lump forming in my throat. "I'm trying, Jill. I'm really trying, but I can't keep doing this. If things don't change, we need to work on this together." "Work on what?" she snapped. "You're the one with the problem, not me. I'm not going to change just because you're too weak to handle a little criticism." I stood there speechless, feeling the last bit of hope draining away. It was clear she wasn't willing to see my side of things. I didn't know what to do next, but one thing was certain. I couldn't keep living like this. A few days later, I stumbled upon something that shattered what little hope I had left. I found out that Jill was being unfaithful with my longtime rival from high school, Ron. The betrayal cut deep, much deeper than I ever thought possible. I discovered the evidence by accident while cleaning up the living room. Jill's phone buzzed on the coffee table. Normally I wouldn't invade her privacy, but curiosity got the better of me. The message preview on the screen was from Ron, and it read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. Love you." My heart sank. I scrolled through their messages, each one more incriminating than the last. Pictures, conversations, plans for secret meetups. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. Jill had been betraying me, and with Ron of all people. I felt a mix of rage and devastation. How could she do this to me? How could she betray our marriage and everything we had built together? Especially with Ron, the person who had tormented me throughout high school. It felt like a cruel joke. That night I confronted her. She didn't even bother to deny it. She just looked at me with a cold, indifferent expression and said, "Well, now you know." The anger boiled over. "How long has this been going on, Jill? How long have you been sneaking around behind my back?" She shrugged, seemingly unfazed by my pain. "A few months, maybe longer. Does it really matter?" "Of course it matters," I shouted, tears welling up in my eyes. "You betrayed me. You destroyed our marriage." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, stop being so dramatic, Connor. You were never enough for me. Ron actually makes me feel alive." Her words stung. But they also gave me a strange sense of clarity. This was it. The final straw. There was no saving our marriage. Jill had made her choice. And now I had to make mine. "I'm done," I said quietly, my voice trembling. "I'm done with this marriage. I'm done with you." She just stared at me expressionless. "Fine. Whatever. Do what you have to do." The next morning I contacted a lawyer and started the divorce proceedings. It hurt. And it was going to be a long, painful process. But I knew it was the right thing to do. I deserved better than this. I deserved to be happy. As I packed my things and prepared to leave, I felt a strange sense of relief. This was the end of a painful chapter. But it was also the beginning of a new one. For the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful about the future. I didn't know what it would bring. But I knew I had the strength to face it. Discovering Jill's betrayal was the final blow. I had no choice but to start divorce proceedings. But I wasn't going to let her walk away easily. Luckily, we had a prenuptial agreement in place that would protect my assets and ensure I wouldn't have to pay alimony. As the divorce process unfolded, I fought tooth and nail to ensure that the prenup was honored. It wasn't just about the money. It was about standing up for myself after all the years of emotional hardship and now this betrayal. My lawyer was relentless. And we gathered every piece of evidence needed to prove Jill's infidelity. Jill was predictably furious when she realized she wouldn't be getting any of my assets or alimony. She had expected to walk away with a significant portion of our wealth. But the prenup and the evidence of her actions left her with nothing. One evening, as we were finalizing the details, she confronted me in the courtroom, her eyes blazing with anger. "You really think you've won, don't you?" she spat. I looked at her, feeling a mix of sadness and resolve. "This isn't about winning, Jill. It's about what's fair. You betrayed me. And now you have to face the consequences," I said firmly. She sneered. But there was a glimmer of resignation in her eyes. "Fine. Keep your money, Connor. I don't need it. Ron and I will be just fine without you." Hearing her mention Ron so casually as if our years together meant nothing still hurt. But I stood firm. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Jill." The divorce was finalized soon after, and I kept everything I had worked so hard for. Jill, despite her initial anger, seemed almost relieved to be rid of me without the burden of legal battles. She wasted no time moving on, making plans to marry Ron. During all this, my daughter Shauna walked a tightrope between both her parents. However, she made her feelings clear to her mother when the details of the affair with Ron came out. As I watched Jill pack up the last of her things, I felt a strange sense of closure. The woman I had loved for so long was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. But that was okay. I was ready to move forward and rebuild my life without the constant negativity and betrayal. Jill's departure was both a loss and a liberation. There were times I felt happy that she was leaving my life. Had she not cheated, I might have filed for divorce myself. I might have lost more than what I lost now. Good riddance, I must say. Sometimes, someone wants to take something from you, not realizing you were ready to get rid of it anyway. Well, Ron just did that for me. If she becomes even half of the person she was during our marriage, Ron is going to have a really tough time. For me, it was time to start anew and find happiness on my own terms. Life moved on and I moved ahead. A few months later, they say the sense of smell is the strongest of the five senses. It can bring back memories even from childhood. The fragrance I smelled when I opened my mailbox wasn't from my childhood, but I recognized it immediately. It brought back memories and turned my mood foul. The scent was Christian Dior's Dune, my ex-wife's favorite for most of our marriage. I knew why I was smelling it. She must have sent me an invitation to her upcoming wedding. What a surprise! As if I wanted to see her joining her new partner in marriage. I rifled through the mail, setting aside bills and junk until I saw it. Of course, it was an ornate envelope with my name and address hand calligraphed in deep purple ink, her favorite color. Royalty, she would say when anyone asked about it. Royalty? She was no closer to royalty than my dog, which she took in the divorce. Am I bitter? Hell yes, I am. She cheated on me with my lifelong rival and took my dog. Taking the dog was the more cruel of the two. I wouldn't have opened the invitation except that I wanted to know when the wedding was so I could conveniently be out of town. July 23rd at 3 p.m. I'm sure I could find somewhere else to be. I looked at the name of the place where the ceremony was going to be held. I couldn't believe she was actually getting remarried in a church. Not just any church, but the most prestigious and pompous church in the city. How could she even think of getting married there after everything that happened? But her new fiancé was wealthy, so I guess only the best for her. I ceremoniously threw the invitation into the wastebasket. I had been in a great mood before I came home. Now my mood soured. It had been a good day at work. One of the newer staff members, Sabrina, had stopped by my cubicle and we flirted a little. At least, I hope she was flirting and not just being nice. This last year and a half had been tough, but her attention really boosted my ego and lifted my spirits. I thought about my ex-wife. We had had 26 years together, 23 as husband and wife. I grabbed a beer out of the fridge, turned on the TV and plopped down on the couch. I'm not sure how long I sat there, but it must have been a while. When I went to take the last swig of beer from the bottle, it was warm. I looked at the bottle and was contemplating grabbing another one when my phone rang. It was my daughter Shayna. "Hello, Pooh Bear," I said. "Hey Dad, how are you doing?" "Well, I was doing great until I got home and checked the mail." "So, you must have gotten the invitation today too," she stated. "Yeah, can you believe it?" "Sorry, Dad." I told her she shouldn't send you one, but she insisted, saying he's got to get over it. He can come to the wedding if for no other reason than to see his daughter as a bridesmaid. Well, I have no intention of going. I already threw the invitation into the trash where it belongs. Dad, would you reconsider? Honey, I'm planning on being out of town that weekend, I declared. Dad, I really want you to be there. They'll need you there for support. You know I don't really want to be in the wedding, I said. But she made me feel guilty. She wanted me to be the maid of honor, but I told her no way. Shayna, you don't need my support. Brent will be there to support you. Dad, what are you going to do next year when Brent and I get married? Are you going to avoid that wedding too? Of course not, Pooh Bear. I can't wait to walk you down the aisle and give you away. So you'll have to be in the same church with them next year. Can't you be the better man and come to this one? I don't think I am the better man, honey, I said to her. Well, think about it, Dad. I really want you to be there with me. Well, think about it, I told her. I would have to really consider it. I didn't think I could be the better man and put this behind me. Jill and I were supposed to be married for life. I guess she wanted to trade up rather than stick with the old model. As I sat there reflecting, I decided to try something that had helped me a number of times throughout my life. When I was younger, I was instructed to write down my problems. Putting my thoughts on paper helped me deal with each concern instead of the whole issue. As I wrote, I realized that the fact that Ron, her new fiancé, had been my rival since junior high made the betrayal even worse. I knew I wouldn't be able to confront him face to face about how I felt, so I decided to write it down. I had no intention of giving it to him, but it would help me get it off my chest. Ron, well, I guess the best man has won. Jill has chosen to be with you for the rest of her life. Ever since junior high, we've been in competition. You truly were my arch-rival. Even in high school we were competing. Jill had been someone we both wanted, but she chose you in the end. Later, while you were at college, she chose me. But I guess even after all these years you couldn't stand that Jill had married me. One would think you would have moved on. But no, you had to pursue her just because she was mine. I'm sure I'm upset with you, but I'm really upset with my ex-wife. The fact that she succumbed to your advances showed me that even after 26 years, I didn't really know her. When we first started dating, we would share all of our hopes, dreams, and fears for hours on end. By the end of our marriage, we hardly talked. Well, I didn't talk much. She did all the talking. I guess I should have been listening more. Maybe I would have heard the alarms warning me that she was leaving me. I keep thinking of all the things about Jill that I used to love. Now you will be the one to experience all that makes her who she is. You'll get to wake up next to her and see her in the morning. You'll be the only one to ever see her without makeup, hair a mess, and the morning breath. She'll immediately go to the bathroom to brush her hair and teeth, as well as put on layers of makeup. You may want to get into the bathroom before her, or else you'll be waiting a while. After I had written those words, I set the pages down and decided to go out to the bar to take my mind off my problems. I'm a little ashamed to admit that I had to get an Uber to take me home because I was too inebriated to drive. The next day was Saturday, so I slept off my hangover. In fact, I didn't get out of bed until 2 p.m. I just couldn't find a reason to get up before then. The smell of sweat finally motivated me to rise. If for no other reason than to take a shower and grab a bite to eat. I felt better after my shower, so I decided to grab a burger at the pub. I had to Uber back to get my car anyway. The burger helped, along with a little hair of the dog that bit me. That next week, Sabrina noticed I was still down and asked me what was wrong. I told her about my issues with my ex. She hadn't worked there when all my trouble started, so she didn't know the whole story. Connor, she said, let's go grab a bite to eat after work. I hate seeing you so glum. I'd hate to have my sour mood rub off on such a happy person. I told her it was nonsense. Maybe I'm just what you need to get you out of your funk. There it was, her flirting again. Or was it totally innocent? I had been out of the game for so long I couldn't be sure of anything. Dinner was nice. We sat and talked. She asked me about what had happened with Jill. And it was clear from my emotional responses that I still harbored a lot of resentment for my ex and her new partner. I apologized for going on about my issues and asked her about her relationships. She told me about her marriage to someone who struggled with alcohol, and then a long-term relationship of 6 years with a guy who decided he didn't want to ever get married. She struggled with that. Did he not love her? Did he want to play the field? She wanted to have children but couldn't see having them without being married. She needed commitment and assurance that he was going to be there for the long haul. As we ate, we talked, taking turns discussing all kinds of topics. It was obvious to me that we had a lot in common. Politics, religion, family values, vacations, and the future. At the end of our meal, we made our way out to the parking lot. And then, without notice, she stepped right up to me and gave me a hug. I was stunned and thought to myself, who was this young woman that could show such concern for me? As she walked toward her car, I just looked at her. She had to be at least 10 years younger than me. A short, petite Latina woman who always seemed to have a smile on her face. I really wanted to learn more of her story. We would have to do this again soon. Sabrina had certainly changed my mood. As I drove to my apartment, I was smiling and singing along with the radio to some country song that I had heard many times before. When I walked into my living room, I saw the letter I had started. My smile faded. But my mood was definitely better than when I had started writing the letter. Having a young woman care enough to try to cheer me up definitely helped me gain a new perspective on life. I sat down, picked up the paper, and thought about my ex-wife. Our relationship wasn't perfect. No one's is. Just ask any couple that has been married for any length of time. There are things that your partner does that, if you focused on them, drive you crazy. You learn to ignore those things or at least learn to live with them. That made me think about dinner with Sabrina. I compared her to Jill and realized something was different. Then it dawned on me. It was the sound of Jill's fork touching her plate. My ex had a habit of tapping her fork on the plate 3 times before taking a bite. I had asked her about it once. She didn't even consciously know she was doing it. When she took a moment to think about it, she said it was to ensure all the food was securely on her fork so she wouldn't spill it on her blouse. I guess that was a good reason, and I learned to live with it. I even learned to ignore it. One thing I do know. I won't miss eating with her. I put pen to paper and started writing again. When we were first married, I found it cute the way she always touched her fork 3 times to her plate before she ate. I have to admit, though, it did really annoy me toward the end. Hearing that clink, clink, clink throughout our meals, even when we were out for dinner. There it was again. Clink, clink, clink. The next week at work, Sabrina let me know that she enjoyed the time we had spent together. Being polite, I said, "So did I. We will have to do that again." When she asked, it surprised me a bit. How about Friday if you don't already have plans?" "Nope, I'm free for you," she said, smiling. There it was again. Was it flirting or just an innocent comment? That night when I walked through the door of my apartment, I was whistling a tune. I saw the letter on the coffee table and thought to myself, not tonight. I didn't even want to think of my ex. Friday came, and we found ourselves enjoying another meal together. I was nervous. It had been so long since I had gone on a date, and I didn't know what to expect. I did know that this woman in front of me was pleasant to be around and easy to talk to. We finished our meal and then just drove around. I know I was nervous and maybe she was too, but when there was silence in the car, neither of us felt the need to fill it with small talk. I appreciated that we were comfortable just sitting together in the car. At the end of the night, I brought her back to her condo. We talked for a little while, then she went inside. As I walked into my apartment and saw the letter still sitting on my coffee table, I just grinned to myself. A week went by, and on Saturday afternoon, Shayna called me again. "Dad, did you send back your RSVP to Mom?" "No, honey. I told you I threw the invitation in the trash where it belonged." "Dad, will you go for me?" "Why do you want me to go so badly, Shayna? Do you think I want to see that guy smirking at me while he marries your mom?" "Dad, I know you two don't get along and I get it, but if you don't go, it will just reinforce in his mind that he has one." "Honey, I don't know. I don't think your mother really wants me there anyway. I think he probably put her up to sending the invitation." "Dad, please think about it." "I will, honey, but don't get your hopes up." We finished our phone call and I felt a little depressed. Why couldn't Shayna understand how I felt? I needed to put a smile on my face, so I decided to call Sabrina. "Hey, Sabrina. How are you? I was just thinking about you and wondering if you had plans today." "Well, that makes me feel good that you're thinking about me." "I don't have anything planned. Do you have something in mind?" "I want to do a road trip." "Are you up for it?" "Where to?" I asked. "Let's just hop in my car and see where it takes us." "Okay. I'm all yours." As soon as I said it, I hoped she didn't take that too seriously. I didn't want to scare her by making her think I was moving too fast. We ended up driving through the countryside, taking in the beautiful scenery. We traveled some high mountain roads where the views were breathtaking. We stopped at a scenic overlook and walked up to get the best view. The wind was a little chilly, so I put my arm around her to share my warmth. She looked up at me and I looked down into her eyes and kissed her. It wasn't a long kiss, but it said, "I like you." It was the first time we kissed and I had hesitated to do anything. I didn't want to scare this lovely woman away, and it had been almost 3 decades since I had kissed anyone other than my ex. She smiled and hugged me back. That was a good sign. We walked arm in arm. Over the last few weeks we had talked about our past relationships. She had married in her early 20s to someone who struggled with alcohol and had become abusive. Luckily, she said, I saw early on that he wouldn't give up drinking, so I made a conscious decision not to have any children with him. I didn't want to bring them up with an abusive father. We discussed my divorce again. She couldn't believe that after all those years together, my ex decided that I wasn't good enough or wealthy enough. We walked along and I talked about my daughter. When I mentioned that she was 22, Sabrina said, "Oh, she's 10 years younger than I am." Sabrina is 32. I thought to myself, what am I doing? I am 16 years older than she is. So I asked her, "Sabrina, I don't know if you realize it, but I'm 48 years old. Why would you want to hang out with someone like me?" She looked at me and gave me a sharp look. Then she said, "Connor, if you can't see that I like you and that your age means nothing to me, then maybe I don't know you at all. Maybe you should find someone who is more your age." She made air quotes, emphasizing her point. I looked at her. She had moved a bit away from me. I blew it. I said to myself as I sat down on a rock bench nearby, "Why am I so stupid? I have a good thing going with someone who makes me happy, and I have to go and say something to screw it up." I looked over at her. She was turned away, but I could tell she was upset. I got up and approached her, hesitantly placing my hands on her shoulders and leaning gently against her back. "I'm sorry. I'm an idiot. I guess I just can't believe someone like you would want to spend time with me. I'm not movie star handsome. Far from it. I'm barely average." She turned her head slightly, and I could see the tears still streaming down her face. "Sabrina, I know it's early in our relationship, but I'm developing strong feelings for you. I guess I was just trying to guard against getting my heart broken again." She turned around and looked at me. "You don't think I'm scared?" My ex-husband was difficult to deal with. He wasn't like that before I married him. At least I didn't see it then. I was also in a relationship with a guy who wouldn't commit. "I think you are different and I thought we were creating something special. I'm not into casual relationships. Having a relationship with someone I like and care for is what I've been searching for. I thought I found that with you, but if our age difference is all you can think about, then maybe we shouldn't even be friends." I looked at her. The little makeup she wore was smudged, but to me, she was the most beautiful woman in the world. I gently pulled her to my chest and after a light hug I pulled away a little. That's when I kissed her again, this time with more feeling. She soon reciprocated, and we stood there embracing with the sun shining down upon us. We must have been there for quite a while because when we finally stopped, I noticed some storm clouds rolling in. I looked at Sabrina and said, "Those clouds look kind of ominous. We better head back. In fact, we should skip the scenic route and take the highway." She looked at me and asked, "Can I interest you in a home-cooked authentic Mexican dinner when we get back?" "That sounds great, but only if you let me help." "Well, I have never had anyone in my kitchen before, but if you're willing, I'm willing to take the chance." I was glad and a bit surprised that neither of her two past relationships had helped her in the kitchen. Was that a cultural thing? I wondered. On the trip back, I noticed something else about Sabrina that was different than Jill, and it was something good that made me smile. I would have to include this in my letter to the a-hole. Dinner was great, and although I think she felt a little awkward with me helping out, we soon prepped like a well-oiled machine. To say the food tasted great would be an understatement. Authentic was definitely better than the so-called authentic food you buy in the grocery store or even at restaurants. She told me that the recipes and prep had been handed down from grandmother to granddaughter for generations. That amazed me. I couldn't think of anything my ancestors had passed down except maybe my genes. We ended the night on the couch, sharing more hugs and kisses. It felt so good to have someone close to me. We didn't take it any further though. I think we were both still a bit hesitant, and I didn't want to rush things. I wanted our relationship to grow. That night when I got home, I went right to the letter I had started. Initially, I wasn't sure if I would send it. I just needed to get things off my chest. Now, I still wasn't sure, but I was leaning towards sending it. The letter had been therapeutic, allowing me to release some anger. So I kept it on the coffee table to write my thoughts down when I found I had something to say. Thinking back to when Jill and I were first married young and in love, we had just started our life together along with our new careers. Money was a little tight, so our honeymoon wasn't to exotic locations, but rather a drive to the Poconos in Pennsylvania. We took turns driving the 6 hours. When you're newly married, you don't let little things bother you. It was, however, the first time I noticed that Jill didn't like using cruise control. That wouldn't be a big problem, except that she fluctuated 2 to 3 miles per hour every 20 to 30 seconds. I actually got a bit queasy after we stopped for lunch. I told Jill I would drive the rest of the trip, so from then on long trips I would drive. I set the letter down, realizing that driving long distances wouldn't be a problem for me in the future. I needed to write something else down to get it off my chest. When Jill and I had gotten married, it had started out great, and I needed to express this to the a-hole. Our honeymoon was wonderful, literally no boundaries. Early in our marriage, we tried everything together, exploring all aspects of our relationship. However, for the last 10 years it has been strictly routine. Nothing adventurous. The intimacy was so minimal that I haven't felt any excitement in years. Maybe she is more open with you. I hope you experience more than I did in recent years. Initially I thought it might be due